What's up, Fins fans? I'm Jim Grieshaber. Call me Gries. The combine in the books. The new regime impresses. And as an organization, off the field, the Dolphins are number one once again.
Hey, I'm Zgonina. Thank God it's Friday. The week is over. Let's talk Fins.
Fins up. It's the Dolphins Squad. Everything Miami Dolphins every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from South Beach. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Sunshine, speed, and squad goals. The Dolphins Squad Show starts now.
Yes, it does. Jim Grieshaber, call me Gries, along with Jeff Zgonina. You call him Z. Kyle Krabs not with us today. He's covering the combine this week and putting up all kinds of great content on your Locked On Dolphins podcast right here on this channel, wherever you get us right now, whether you're live with us on YouTube, whether you are listening after we upload, you download Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Stitcher, Podbean, and of course, you download OTT. No way. Yes, actually, not OPP, OTT. It's over-the-top television. It's Roku, and I'm really not funny. So I should just start the show and let Z get it going. But I'll tell you this, one more thing before we move. Z agrees with me. This is the first time he's agreed with me, I think, on the show. But today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. And I know Z agrees with me. We all love FanDuel. FanDuel is something that makes, I talk all the time about stacking action on the action, and there's no better way to do that than with FanDuel. Stack your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Z, and we're talking football. It's the sport of kings, better than diamond rings, right? And here we are. Football, the combine's over. We're getting ready for some more roster moves, maybe a release or two in the next week, and then free agency gets going. The draft is in April, so the gas just gets punched right now on that offseason. And the Dolphins, they got cap compliant with those releases they just did, and now it's time to really get to work.
Yeah, I mean, to be truthful, the combine's not completely over. The defense is over, so yeah, in my eyes, it's over. But now, all the big shooting quarterbacks, receivers, and running backs and offense, takes over the weekend. It used to be flipped where the defense took the weekend, but now it's the offense because, prime time's better on the weekend to show the quarterbacks and the wide receivers and the running backs. So that's why they got the weekend. But get through the weekend, and, then it really starts ramping up on free agency, and that's going to be, a lot of twists and turns. There was a big trade today or yesterday, I think, between the Jets and Tennessee. Saleh got one of his draft picks back from the Jets, and they sent a big D lineman up to New York from Tennessee, and so it's starting to happen. Veterans are asking for trades, and teams are letting them seek trades, for trade value. So a lot of teams are getting ready, hopefully grab some picks for that draft coming up, by unloading some veteran players.
Unloading veteran players is a big topic this week with the Combine, Z, and we're talking about the Dolphins, obviously, and there's a lot to do there with John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley, and I don't know how much you saw of what they said to the media this week at the Combine, but they impressed a lot of people saying good things about him. I don't know how you would not impress people talking on a microphone at a scouting combine, but, it's interesting. The Combine has become, it's just, to me, the NFL has mastered making money all year long. The NFL has mastered becoming front page headlines all year long. Z, they'd use things like the draft, the combine. It's incredible the way the NFL has managed to dominate sports year round with a 16 and now an 18 game season plus playoffs, right? It's almost unheard of. You got basketball, 82 games. You got baseball, 162. But in just 18 plus playoffs, football is the dominant sport all year long. So people seem to care a lot more about what's happening at the combine than they do about the MLB season that's coming up, the NBA season that's terminally long. You want to blow your brains out about this time of year. So it's people are hanging on every word for the combine and every piece of tape and video and this kid and that kid. And I just want to ask you, as a guy who's been to more than your fair share and you know the intricacies of it, how much, because I definitely feel like they overvalue it and overrate it, but how much do you think people just overinflate the combine as a whole?
Well, it's another spectacle. The NFL's made it for the fans more than it is for anything else. And a lot of teams are not showing up nowadays. They're just sending, their video guys there, and a lot of teams will do a lot of Zoom meetings there, because it's too late at night. Everything's pushed to night now because everything's got to be on TV, and the meetings never went to past 10 o'clock. Now they're going to 11 o'clock, these formal and informal interviews. And it just makes it a long day because like a lot of these coaches don't do a lot during the day. Now, before you got it all done, you had a nice little dinner with your staff and then you get ready for the next day. But now it's just extending. It's making it longer and longer. So, I mean, the NFL's doing it because it's making money. They're charging people to come there and watch the bench press, the drills and all that. And it just, there's so much TV coverage there. Everybody in the world is there covering this. It's like a Super Bowl. That's basically what it's like. It's like Radio Row there, in the upper level of the stadium. When you walk to these meetings, it's just all the TV personalities there, and it just keeps racking in the money.
It's crazy too, and the ratings are big, and you got McAfee there broadcasting live. You have all the big shows there, and that, of course, he's in Indy, his city. But man, it's just insane what people put into this and the resources that go into it. And one of the things that always hits me, Z, a certain way is that a player who can play his whole life, right, have a great career, kill it in college, you're amazing, and then you go to the combine and your stock falls because something didn't measure right. And you see stock up, stock down. And you see a guy like Sonny Styles, for example, the linebacker Lorenzo Styles' son from Ohio State, just killing it at the combine. And people are excited to see Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, the top 10 projected running back. He's going to participate in everything. But then you get a guy like Mendoza who goes in for the interviews and doesn't throw. And a lot of the quarterbacks don't. A lot of buzz about the Dolphins and Carson Beck. And, it's so interesting to me to see how a guy, and even Reuben Bain, we talked about it on this show, with the shortest measurement for arm length of any defensive end, and it would ever have been picked in the first round. So stock up, stock down based on measurements.
Yeah. I mean, Bain is like one of the shortest arms ever. I was reading somewhere.
Yeah.
And, it's crazy. I don't see how far he drops or if he does drop at all. I mean, I'm intrigued by that. I mean, I'm going to watch that, that player go through this process and see what happens, because people do put a lot of stock in that, so I'm going to be interested to see what he does. And Styles, man, he killed it. I mean, he's like third best overall. I mean, he crushed Megatron's numbers. I saw somewhere. I mean, it's like, he's a freak. I mean, he kind of pushed himself maybe to a top 5 pick in this draft, depending on, if somebody needs a linebacker need. He's not getting out of the top 10. That's for sure. I mean, that's freaky numbers there. You just don't see those from a linebacker. I mean, and God bless him. Like I said, I know his daddy. I played with his dad, and I was happy to see that that family get blessed like that.
Yeah, I mean, A.J. Hawk, I think, is the only Ohio State Buckeyes linebacker who's had better numbers at the combine than Styles, and that's unofficial. I'm not 100% sure on that. But
no way. Gries, there is no way Hawk
I saw it up on the screen on the show. That's why I'm saying that. Let me see.
I don't know. He didn't jump 43.5 inches in the vertical.
No, not the vertical.
And he didn't run a 4.46 or whatever Styles ran.
Let's see. What do we got here? Let's see what the numbers were.
I think 11.2 broad jump.
4 point. Yeah, AJ ran a 4.5 to 4.55.
Yeah.
40. And Styles ran a 4.46. The vertical was 43.5. And AJ Hawk, yeah, weren't better numbers. They were comparing Ohio State linebackers.
Okay, Gries.
Yeah.
Okay, Gries. White man can't jump. Remember that.
White man can't jump. I'm living proof of that, man. But what about Toriano Pride? That man can run. We know that. The corner from Missouri, 4.32 in the 40, Z.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems like it should be a good corner group. I was reading. I didn't really do a lot of studying of it, especially with the corners, and it seemed like a couple of them were jumping off the pages there. I heard a lot of good feedback. Even the kid that, where was he from? I think LSU or somewhere, D-Lane or whatever, who was hurt last year, sat out with a knee or something. He's healthy. I guess he's doing some good interviews down there, and he's got a chance to really jump up the board.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see. And obviously in Indianapolis right now, you talk about the offensive players this weekend, and the Dolphins obviously going to have a big eye on those players. And you got some really good receivers in this draft. You got Love, the running back from Notre Dame, a couple more really good RBs, but it's going to be fun to see how these players perform over the weekend. And, Z, as we continue sitting here talking about the combine, it's I'm interested to see what happens off the combine, outside of the combine with Miami right now, because one of the biggest topics of conversation that you're seeing everywhere right now is Tua and Kyler Murray and the entire, by the way, other quarterbacks too. Like, it's not just those guys. And we're talking about others that are in that position too right now where they might be released. Kirk Cousins was told he's being released. Tua and Kyler Murray, though, Nobody's traded yet. The Dolphins are going to have to, even if they do trade him, they're going to have to eat so much of the money. It'd almost be like they released him. So I think, though, Z, we're going to get something happening with Tua in the next week or so.
Oh, I think so. I think coming out of this weekend, once this weekend's over and all the big wigs have done their talking and seeing where they could jockey and move guys or not move guys, you might get a release. You might get the June 1st, statement come out. They'll release them after June 1st, help with the salary cap. But something's going to come out within the next, I think, 2 weeks to 10 days, maybe. We'll get something will leak out that what's going to happen with all these quarterbacks. I saw today that Andy Dalton, if he wants to move, he can look for a trade possibly, so that's out there too, so little by little things are going to come out, little tidbits here, little nuggets are going to drop from the tree, and we'll get a feeling before free agency starts about these quarterbacks.
Yeah, and they're not probably more than likely not going to franchise anybody. They really can't afford it. And then the announcement was made. The NFL announced the salary cap, Z, at $301.2 million. First time over $300 million for the cap.
Well, yeah. And in 94, guess what it was?
What?
34 million.
Wow.
That's $1 million under the franchise tag for a quarterback, I believe.
Oh, my Lord, man. That's insane how much this money's gone up. And, you never think it can go higher, but it always does, and it always seems like it will. Coming out of this combine, too, and you look at the Dolphins, they have decisions to make on key players, and should they trade Achane? Should they trade Waddle? We've all said no to both of those, but, it looks like they will be losing Waller. People thinking Darren Waller won't come back. He still wants to play, but probably won't play here. So there's a lot of things happening, a lot of things taking shape, but one of the biggest things, Z, and I don't know how much this will impact Miami or not, is the market for the quarterbacks is going up. So where we thought maybe Malik Willis could be 2 years, 30 or 40 million initially, now we're looking at probably 30 million per. The numbers for quarterbacks just keep going up.
Yeah, I'm going to correct myself. So I'm here in the chat room. It's 43 million and change, almost 44 million for a franchise quarterback. And if you transition a quarterback, tag them. These are those tags, right? It's 37.8.
Yep.
Tag one. So yeah, so you're talking about Malik Willis. Yeah, he could be up there. He could be above a franchise tag type quarterback, and God bless him. He played it right. He played when he had to play, and he put some good tape out there, so I hope he gets it. And he gets up to those numbers. I don't think the Dolphins are a player anymore. That's for sure. They just can't this year. They can't afford that.
No, they can't. And that bodes well for Quinn Ewers, who obviously slid a lot last year, but he's looking forward to the opportunity to come in and compete for the job. And from what I've seen and heard, Z, the coaches like him as well. I forgot to ask you when we were talking about Bain, since we're still on the combine. Given that measurement, are you not going to take him? If you're the defensive line coach and they're asking you, hey, Z, do you want this kid? What are you saying?
Well, he's 6'2", 263 with 37/8 inches.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it was measured at the combine, right? So I don't know. You go off his game tape. And, it's hard to say. In the right system, I get it. Now, is he going to play a true D end, or is he going to play stand-up outside linebacker? Like a James Harris or Harrison, right, from Pittsburgh, right? Number 92, right?
Yep.
Terrell Suggs, maybe. I can't remember where Terrell.
Yeah, you're right. Derek Thomas. Yep, guys like that.
So he could fit into that spot. I don't think he's going to be a top 10. I know people have talked about that early in this process, was maybe a top 10, top 15, maybe not. I don't know. Again, I haven't really watched his tape. I haven't really broke him down. You know what I'm saying? But going off these numbers, I don't think he's a top 15, just off the numbers, So
you're not taking him at 11 if he's there and you're Miami?
No, I'm not. I'd go with Texas Tech guy, Bailey, right?
Well, Styles probably won't be. What if Styles is there after that performance?
I'm thinking Styles. But
Yeah,
that's
he won't
me.
be there. He's not going to be there.
No, I don't think so. If he is, you got to take him. Because if you don't take him, he's at 12, like Cowboys are taking him.
And would that be the end for Dotson then? I mean, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what they do.
You play him next to him, maybe. Who knows? It's a rookie. It's still a rookie. You still got to come in and learn the system and everything. But again, you get a cat like that, I'm sure Halfley's going to dial up some different things for that kid to showcase his talent.
Man, this dude's 6'5", 244 on top of it, Z. That's the crazy
thing. I know.
Thing.
He's 6'5",
244. We're talking about almost as big as Ruben Bain, taller and almost as heavy as Bain, right? So think about that. And this dude's a linebacker. He's more like a heat-seeking missile. and people comparing him to some of the greats. Like, he's got that size like an Urlacher, and he's fast, and he can jump out of, oh man, it's unbelievable. And obviously that doesn't guarantee anything, but with a guy like that, athletic, I think about a guy like Derek Brooks when I think about those kind of numbers from an LBZ.
Yeah. Yeah, but he's not a thumper. I don't think he's a thumper like Brooks he was. Brooks, he came downhill a lot, but he played in that great defense, so that helped out too. But Styles, I mean, I saw that RAS thing. It was like a 10 or something. Like it's unbelievable. So, I mean, he's got the measurable, he's got all the numbers, he's got the tape. He's going to hopefully be a successful football player if he goes to the right spot and, and God forbid, no injuries.
It really is crazy. And Arvell Reese, by the way, tied for the fastest linebacker at the combine. I like watching these guys run, Z. It almost looks like the Olympics to me, man. And, I mean, a lot of these guys were track stars in high school, college, whatever. And it almost looks like heats at the Olympics when these guys run. It's kind of fun. I don't get into it like most people do, but I enjoy like watching it and seeing what's going on for sure. And you get a lot of great information while you're watching the combine. As a guy who's hosted a lot of these shows over the years, draft shows, combine shows, things like that, when you're on site and you're hosting live at an event like that, Z, you get so much time to fill. And so you have so much info and you can just really educate the hell out of the audience. And I think that they've done a great job of that with the combine, and you learn so much when you're watching it. So it's a lot of fun. Speaking of learning a lot, the Dolphins have definitely learned. Stephen Ross, the owner, and the organization, they've definitely learned how to be number one. Is it in the right place? Is it in the wrong place? We'll talk about that, and we'll explain when we keep it going on your Dolphins Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and the number one sports podcast network. And, oh, man, I get a chance to talk to you about FanDuel. If you have ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person, FanDuel is giving you and you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes, sweeping you off your feet with FanDuel. Here's how it works. You use your profit boost on any NBA future, any of them, right? And you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole shebang. She bangs, right? If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock on and lock it in. I love futures this time of year. Who doesn't, right? Whether it's picking a team to win the title, grab the conference chip, whatever it is, it adds that extra layer of excitement. You're stacking the action on the action every game down the stretch. And now, not only can you pick cash, could also send you to the finals. Your pick can cash or it can send you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jeff Zgonina, call him Z, and I'm Jim Grieshaber, call me Gries. I got to move my fat head. I don't know how any camera could miss this melon, Z. I mean, legitimately, man. It's and I look at you, and yours is bigger than mine, and that's like, it's crazy when you think about it, because I usually have the biggest head in any picture that I'm in, and I think about the thought of being a center lined up across from you with that head and that neck of yours, man. I'm telling you, that's not for me. That's not for me. But yeah, man, that's Jeff Zgonina, former Dolphins defensive tackle, and on those great teams with Zach Thomas and Jay. Well, they weren't great. They were great defenses with those guys. And unfortunately couldn't put it together, which, leads me into my point in a way, Z, the Miami Dolphins are the number one organization in the NFL again off the field, right? Think about that. Number one again off the field, the Miami Dolphins. And that is something that really is it's confounding, Z, that you can have this happen. And here's why, okay? And look, this is it's an NFLPA survey, right? The Players Association does a survey, and you probably know a lot more about this survey than I do. But for the third consecutive year, the Miami Dolphins ranked first in an NFL Players Association annual report cards, meaning, you know what I mean? The Vikings are second, the Commanders in third, and the Steelers are supposedly last, right? With all that culture they talk about. This
second to last, I think.
Yeah, second to last. So, and the Cardinals obviously every year are down at the bottom, but
dead last.
And so here's what I'm thinking, Z. And before I react to this, and it talks about stuff off the field, right? The organization, the amenities, the way they take care of their players, the things like that off the field as an organization. And but before I get into why this is so confounding to me, I just want to get your thoughts and hear you explain from your point of view what these NFLPA polls are all about.
Well, the way I look at it nowadays, because back when I was playing, half the stuff that these players have now, we did not have. Like, I know off air we were talking about a team had to pay for their own lunches. Well, when I got a league, as a rookie, I was sent out every day at lunchtime to pick up lunch for everybody in my room or by my locker. Big Eric Green, the big tight end, he would send me out every day to Rally Burger for two Rally Burgers with no onions. I remember his order to this day. Or Pepe sandwiches for Kevin Green was a sub sandwich there in Pittsburgh. So we did that. We didn't have meals. The first time I had a meal from the organization was in '95 with the Carolina Panthers. The first year Mr. Richardson had the team in existence. He said, "There's breakfast and lunch." I go, "Breakfast and lunch?" He goes, "Yeah, I feed you guys." Never had that before. No one in the league had it, but he was the first one. And now it's got to the point where we have dietitians. We have, private chefs in the building cooking for you. They cook a regular meal. You can say, "Hey, I need this or this today," and they'll make it for you. They have no problems. They're beautiful about it, and and a lot of organizations feed the whole building, not just the players. In San Francisco, the whole building ate there. I know in Dallas, the whole building ate there. A couple other places was after the players, but a lot of the time it's during when the players are in there too. They get to eat the same food as us. Which was kind of nice for an ownership to do that. It makes people want to work harder. At least you hope so. But yeah, like everything was graded. Like the Dolphins, only 3 areas weren't an A or an A-.
Yeah, and we're talking everything from ownership to treatment of families, the facilities, the medical, everything. And we're talking about 1,800 players, 1,759 Z. Anybody who was on a 2025 roster at the time of the survey, it was from November 2nd to December 11th, was eligible to vote. So players from other teams, people love the Miami Dolphins organization. And then you throw in the fact that you're in South Florida. You're in Miami, there's South Beach, there's downtown, there's all these great things. It's the weather, it's incredible. And, everything is thriving in Miami and South Florida right now. It's a great place to live. So you have the top organization 3 years in a row, which is a direct reflection on the owner doing his job. As much as people bag on Ross for the bad moves that he's made football-wise, outside of football, he's clearly one of the best, if not the best owner in the sport. But, Z, all that said, they still don't win. And when you throw in all those things in combination and you realize how bad you have to screw things up on the football side when you're number one off the field and you live in a place like Miami, how badly you have to mess that up to be as awful as this franchise has been for so long and just not have any success at all, no postseason, no nothing, and still have a great organization like this.
Yes, it is. And you got, when you look at this list, I'm looking at it right now, position coach, A-, coordinator, offensive coordinator, A-, defensive coordinator, A, right? Head coach, B.
Yeah, he went from an A+ to a B in 1 year, Mike.
Yeah, and general manager who got fired, A-. So again, to me, when I see that, who voted an A- for him? Well, the guys that got the big contracts, right? That's who, for the general manager, because he's not there anymore. So it's kind of like skewed there a little bit. But team ownership, an A. Yes, it is. The one that really stuck up to me, though, was like the treatment of families, a B+. Now, when I played there with Mr. Huizenga, his Christmas parties, his Halloween parties, he had a party, always for the families, and
God rest his soul. He was great.
It was unbelievable. I can remember when I was there, and my kids were little, and we go to these huge Christmas parties, and he had snow blowing in the bubble and ice rink and ice sculptures and Santa Claus and reindeer. It was unbelievable. It was like a gala, and I remember we switched teams after that, and we were going to the Christmas party, and I told my kids, I said, "Hey guys, it ain't like Mr. Wayne's parties now. I guarantee you that, because you ain't gonna see that kind of big to do." And it wasn't. And I remember getting in the car, and my daughter goes, "Yes, I'm not going to mention names, but she goes, he ruined Christmas because it wasn't the same. The gifts weren't there. The Santa Claus wasn't there. He had little elves, it was unbelievable."
Wow. Yeah. Mr. H was the man. He was such a generous guy. And, the Marlins fire sale in '97 took a lot of shine off his legacy, not his legacy, but his stature at the time, but he is to South Florida what Jerry Colangelo is to Phoenix, and there's a lot of other ones, right? Where would we be as a sports town without Mr. H, without Wayne Huizenga? He had his own golf course up in Stewart where he did charity events and brought in guys like Nicholas and Palmer and Gary Player and every NFL and Major League Baseball guy in the world. I used to work him, see everything first class all the way through. Every single touch that he possibly could have thought of was first class with Mr. H, from his helicopter right on down to the greens on his golf course. And he still couldn't get it done with the Dolphins, and he did get it done with the Marlins. And, it's insane to think how hard it is to win the whole thing, to sort of judge an organization for not doing that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about any kind of postseason success, a sustained run, a coach and GM combo we can be proud of, all those things.
Yeah, no, I mean, he had a course in Plantation too, or Davie. I mean, they went down there too, right? Mm-hmm. With the guys, they used to have training camp. They used to stay at training camp before I got there. I remember the guys were saying that. Yeah, he was unbelievable. I mean, he had the Panthers too. I mean, he had three of the sports teams, right? And he was a special guy. He wanted to win. He really did. We just couldn't do it for him. We couldn't get the right quarterback after Marino, and it just, I felt bad because he gave us everything we wanted and we needed, to be successful. We just couldn't get it done.
No, and Joe Robbie was a notorious tightwad, right? Never paid anybody. That's why those guys all left. Zonka, Kick, and Merck, and those guys went to the CFL, right? Because of that. And
USFL.
I'm sorry, as a USF. That's right. It was Memphis. Kick and Zonka went to. That's right. So it's interesting when you think about that, the history of the ownership of the Miami Dolphins. But Ross, much more toward the Huizenga side than the Robbie side. And back then it was very different. The league was very different. But Ross, one of the top 3 owners in the league, by the way, Z, in this vote, with Ziggy Wolf of the Vikings and Arthur Blank of the Atlanta Falcons, as in blank check. He puts out a lot of those, Z.
Yes, he does. I was shocked that the Steelers ownership was so low. Excuse me.
God bless you, buddy. It's the facilities in their case. Like Rooney doesn't want.
No, but ownership was low too, I thought.
Yeah. Yep. You got it.
And that because I played for them, and every time I was at the combine, they still, go out of their way to talk to me. I did a charity event, with Mr. Rooney in Chicago this past season when the Steelers came up to play the Bears. I went down for it, and he was still, he's one of the nicest family guys I've ever came across in this profession.
It's crazy when you think about. You talked about Mr. Richardson with the Carolina Panthers. Now David Tepper is voted one of the worst, right? Yeah. Woody Johnson, no surprise there. You mentioned Rooney. Of course, Michael Bidwell of the Cardinals. He's adopted anyway. I mean, but he's still a Bidwell. He probably has his first penny that he ever made. And I'm amazed Larry Fitzgerald made it his whole career in Arizona and made the Hall of Fame. And you're seeing all kinds of guys come out and rip the organization now that they know Fitzy's, going in. But the surprising name on this list, Z, he just got denied the Hall of Fame, and now he's in the bottom of the players poll, is Robert Kraft. I mean, the guy wins a ton of Super Bowls. You're in New England. You have great facilities, the Patriot way. You just went to the Super Bowl, and dude's in the bottom of the list. I think it's funny.
Yeah, no, I mean, because they haven't redone the facilities. I don't know. I don't know what, I always thought he was a good owner. He took care of those guys, but maybe he didn't. Maybe it's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, and of course, Brady left and wins the Super Bowl in Tampa, and then Belichick leaves, and Robert Kraft goes back to the Super Bowl with Vrabel as his coach a couple of years later. But I don't know, Z. With all this being said, we're having fun here on a talk show in the off season. But I mean, I can't imagine anybody really puts a ton of stock into these things. Like if you're a free agent, you're not going, "Hey, the Players Lounge is nice," I mean, yeah, it factors in, but
like when I was coaching at the Commanders, we were 32nd in the league. And they were ripping our cafeteria. And it was one of the best cafeterias. Our chef was unbelievable. I mean, the food he made was unbelievable.
So what was the issue then?
I don't know. I could never figure that one out. It was like our strength staff was an A, like woohoo, our strength staff, but the guys downstairs in the cafeteria they made some really good food. I mean, it was unbelievable. Better than most places I've ever been. So it's who knows what these guys vote on sometimes, but again, hats off, to the Commanders. They went from 32nd to 3rd, and they battled up. I mean, we had a lot of issues, and we deserved that 32nd overall. I mean, the facility was beat down, run down. There's no money being put in. I mean, there was numerous times we'd be sitting there and the power go out in the building because the bill wasn't paid or something, or there was a
Gotta
short
love Dan
circuit.
Snyder. Gotta love
You
that.
know, I mean, it was every day was, a different event. Guys would be like, how do you deal with that? I go, you get used to it after a while. You get numb to it, because that whole, when Dan was going through all his legal problems and everything, and it was just, in COVID, it was just like, it was a bad time in the world to be, in the Commander building, or Redskins, or the Washington football team, and the Commanders. I had all three teams in my little 4-year stay there.
Yep. And think about this, right? With the injuries they had, Daniels, McLaurin, I mean, it was just a devastating year in Washington when they had high expectations after the year before, the playoff year and all that. So that happened in a year like that where everybody's miserable and you're losing anyway. But I think it's interesting. I think these things matter a little bit. If all things are pretty close to equal, Z, right? You know much better than I do. But I feel like if it's me, if all things are close to being equal, I'm definitely going with the better organization. But if they're far apart at all in money, you're going for the money, right?
Always.
Yeah.
Most guys, and unless, and a lot of guys did this back in the day with Brady was, rolling there in New England. They got a lot of bargain guys at the end of their career, or, almost to the end of the career.
Because they hadn't won yet.
They haven't won that ring,
Yeah.
and they were chasing it. And they're like, we'll make our money up in the playoffs. I just want that ring to put in my legacy, and sometimes you get one, sometimes you don't, but I think like Randy Moss, he went up there. He bought in right away because, again, I didn't play with Randy. Yep. I don't know Randy. It's all the things you hear, the noise that was coming out of Minnesota at the time, the disgruntledness, and Randy being Randy at the time, but he's a heck of a football player. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame. He went up to New England. And Bill took flyers on a lot of guys too. Albert Haynesworth.
And Brady did too. Brady vouched for a lot of those guys. All the way up to Antonio Brown, right?
Yeah.
And before that, guys like Corey Dillon, guys like Ocho went there.
Yeah.
And then some other guys like Rodney Harrison and Junior Seau, who weren't anything of a problem. Obviously, you love when those guys come in. But Junior and Rodney and Moss and all those guys, what do they have in common, Z? They didn't win a Super Bowl there. Is that unbelievable or what?
It is. It really is. I mean, one year they were undefeated, and, Junior was there, and I was kind of pulling for Junior to get his ring finally, But, it's crazy. But, again, guys will do that. Guys will chase the ring. I mean, when I was in St. Louis, we had a lot of older veterans trying to get on our team when we were making all those runs, because they were just going to get on the train and, and compete and, fill, and be part of it. Not just sit there on the pine and get a ring, but they wanted to be a part of it to have an opportunity to get that ring.
What a mix they had in New England, though. And we got to get to a break, but they had guys like that. You bring in a Randy Moss. And Brady talked about Moss. He just did a great episode of Ari Emanuel has an amazing podcast called Mount Rushmore or something like that. Or I don't know what it is, something like that. It's only the greatest of the great. And every interview did a Jimmy Iovine and Rick Rubin interview, and he's doing stuff like that. But on this side, he did Peyton Manning and Brady at the same time, and they were picking their top 4 receivers of all time. And Brady just said Randy Moss was the only guy he played with. He said Jerry Rice and Larry Fitzgerald, even though he didn't play with those guys, would fall into the same category. They were not faster than any DB they lined up against, and Randy Moss was, and that was the difference in Moss with those other guys.
Yeah. Oh, no. Moss was tall, could stretch the field, and could catch the ball.
Yeah, what a player he was. And I remember him coming out of college. Was he going to Notre Dame? Was it Florida State? Ends up at Marshall. And they knew with the Vikings what a player they got late in the first round, by the way, because of off-field stuff, similar to what happened to Warren Sapp at Miami and some other guys like that. It's Gries, it's Z. It's the Squad Show. We're late for a break. Going to keep this talk going right here on the other side. Still to come, more talk on what's coming up for Miami. Will they release Tua this week? What about trades? What about free agency coming up? And, of course, the draft. And then we go around the NFL a little bit, too, on this busy combine week. Jeff Zgonina, call him Z. Jim Grieshaber, call me Gries. It's the Squad Show right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And I get a chance to tell you about 5-Hour Energy. It's the flavor draft with 5-Hour Energy. 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like confetti craze, fruity rainbow, and cotton candy. There is something literally for everyone. That means you and you and you. The board is set. The flavors are ready. And I have my number one pick for the 5-Hour Energy flavor draft. I myself, I love that fruity rainbow, man. I'm going to tell you what, I'm not crazy about the name. I'm not putting it on a t-shirt, but I love the flavor, man. It's tart. It's sweet. You're getting hit with all those fruit flavors, and I just love that, man. And then instantly you're getting hit with that 5-hour energy, if you know what I'm saying. So I'm taking Fruity Rainbow number 1 in my 5-hour energy draft. You know what I'm saying? It just really is awesome when you think about the different flavors. And remember, you just anything that you drink that would give you energy would taste like crap. The brands that are still number 1 in the energy drink categories, the seltzers and stuff, they taste terrible, but they were first, right? Well, 5-hour energy in its category, that little shot, 5 hours, boom, they own that market, and they are absolutely amazing. 5-hour energy shots give you a boost with 0 sugar. A lot of upcoming innovations planned, flavors, things with the energy that are changing. The formulas, it's just always evolving and getting better. So find your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots, available online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon for 5-hour energy. The flavor draft on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. There we have it, Z. I'm in the frame this time. That's always good. When it goes from the 1 to the 2, it's like, hey, I'm over here, man. I'm over here. But it's crazy when you think about the week that we have here. You got the combine, you got some roster moves coming up, you have the draft, free agency, so many things to be answered, questions to be answered with this Miami Dolphins team, this organization. And Z, the question everybody wants an answer to, and we don't have an answer yet, we will soon enough, is they impressed with the media this week in Indy. I saw the interview with John Eric Sullivan and Rich Eisen, crushed the interview. You feel really good about the vision and where this team's going when you watch that and listen to it. Then you watch Hafley, and every time I watch Hafley, I can't help but be impressed, man. I want him to come to my house and teach me something. You know what I'm saying? Because he's a teacher, and I love that for this team right now at this point in time. But Z, it's not even March yet, brother. You don't win now, right? You don't win now. You win the off-the-field awards from the players. But, to convert that and to translate that into winning, do you feel like from what you've seen so far, and I know this is a ridiculous question, so you don't even have to tell me, do you feel like these guys so far, do you feel good about them? Do you feel comfortable with them? Do you feel like they could be the pair that turns this thing around?
God, I hope so.
Yeah.
That's just the hope right now. But, but I don't know Sullivan at all. I know Hafley. I worked with Jeff, and he commands a room when he talks. That's the one thing he's good about. He checks his ego at the door. He's just a hardworking teacher. That's what he is. And that's what this team needs. And I think he's going to do some good things. Once he gets his people in there, his people, what I mean by his players in there, and what he wants to run his defense, I think this team is going to turn around fast and get going. Because Half is just a good dude. He cares a lot. He cares about the player. He cares about his coaches. He cares about the team. And that's all you want out of a head coach. And I think he can do some really good things out there.
Yeah, and Idleman 12 wants to know in the chat, does Bane drop to 11? Well, even if he does, Z says he won't take him because he's short and he has short arms. And, those numbers don't add up in the NFL. It's a cruel world, but it is what it is. And the measurements are the measurements. They're empirical and you can't change them. And then the other thing in there, Z, is Francis Maui-Noah. Will he be available at 11? I'd almost certainly say no way. When you have a tackle that big, that strong, that gifted, he does not last till the 11th pick in Maui-Noah. I think Bane's going to slide. I don't know how far, but, we got some Canes over here, Z. We got some Canes who did all right at the combine, and, the Dolphins are talking to Carson Beck, and you don't know where these guys are going to end up. But it's interesting to see how a guy like Bane could just slide when, after the Notre Dame game, he's the number 1 player in the country, and he's a cinch to be the number 1 pick.
Yeah, again, he's going to slide. I think that, but that's just my opinion. It means absolutely nothing in this world. I get that, but that's just my opinion about it, and because of the measurements, I just know how some of these coaches think, and again, if there wasn't a lot of great DNs in this draft, then I don't think he'd slip that far. But he's going to slip a little bit, But so again, he gets, like I talked about earlier, an outside linebacker role. If a team like that, Baltimore might take a shot at him, play that outside linebacker role. He could do that, Again, I see that, to me, that's more of a fit for him than a true 6 technique, 5 technique D end in a 4-3.
Man, this is interesting, right? I don't know. I mean, if I'm the Raiders, first of all, I trade down, but you don't have that guy at the top of the draft this year who everybody's clamoring for. So I don't know if it's the year to trade down, but I don't take Mendoza, Z. If I'm the Raiders, I do not take Mendoza. I think he has limitations. He has small hands. You want to talk about Bane's reach? Let's talk about Mendoza's hands, right? Gripping that football. What happens with wet footballs? You don't have to tell me twice. Look at guys like Troy Aikman could never throw a wet football. Tony Romo could never throw a wet football.
They play in a dome, Gries.
Yeah, but half the year.
Hey, it's 8 games.
More than half, because half the road games are probably inside or in nice weather too.
Well, who they got? They got Denver. Okay, that's outside.
Mm-hmm.
They got Kansas City. That's outside.
Bad weather.
They got the Chargers dome. So that's 9 games in the dome.
Yeah, that's 9 games, and then more depending upon what division you're. Yeah,
that's no different than when I was in St. Louis, and we, Dick Vermeil and Mike Martz built that team to play in a dome. Why? We had 8 games at the dome in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta was in our division, dome. New Orleans was in our division, dome. That's 10 games. We're playing inside. The other game was Carolina, so that's a toss-up.
They didn't call it the greatest show on turf for nothing.
That's right. But that's how we were built, and that's how what teams do. They build sometimes they do build, and they do look at it of their personnel of where they're playing, because they just do. I mean, we did, and we got a bunch of fast dudes, both offense, defensively. We just we're the greatest show on turf.
Man, I wish David Bailey would be available, man. That linebacker from Texas Tech, Z, he's going to be long gone by the time the Dolphins pick. I like Arvell Reese a lot. Sonny Styles, he'll probably be gone. It really will be interesting to see if Bane's going to be there. I don't think Maui Noah is going to be there. And I don't have a good feeling about the Dolphins with that pick for whatever reason. I'd trade down, especially if a guy like Styles is still there and a team's freaking out over him and they give you something. I don't know. Do you see any scenario where they get a real good offer for that 11 pick?
I'm sure they're going to get an offer, and I'm sure they're going to think about it because, like Sullivan said, he wants to build picks. So he's in a good spot. These guys keep putting up all these good numbers. You got a chance. You got a chance to slide back in the middle of the first round, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll trade you number 11 for a second and a third and a future first, and you have to take Tua.
I doubt that. I doubt if Tua's getting traded, it's way before the draft.
Yeah,
I promise you that.
No one's trading for him, are they? He's a cut.
Again, if ownership is willing to pay for his contract, majority of his contract, I think you can probably get a trade partner. Now, you're not going to get a first or a second or a third, or not even a fourth, probably, unless you pay more money of the contract, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that they're talking about it. They started probably on Monday, and they'll go till Sunday night down there in Indianapolis talking about it.
Yep. And will the Niners get an offer good enough for Mac Jones? He's in play. Where will Willis end up? Malik Willis. What are the Cardinals going to do with Kyler Murray? The clock is ticking, and he gets a big bonus very soon if he's still on that roster. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens, because we know, Z, when quarterbacks get that change of scenery, it's everything, man. It's the toughest position to play in any sport, quarterback in the NFL, man. You have to have all the gifts, the tools, but you have to process things so quickly. Brady says all the time that's what made him so elite, is how quickly he could process things and how hard he worked watching film. In fact, the story that was unbelievable, they were playing a conference championship game, and he and McDaniels were watching film on a Saturday. This is Brady. And they found a couple tells on the defense, watching film on a Saturday, the day before the game. They put 5 plays in the day before the game, and they scored on 3 of them. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, that's good. Again, when you get older, you start seeing things differently, and you pick up on things. Whereas younger, you don't see it. As a student of the game, you keep studying it. You keep studying, things pop up all of a sudden. It might take a few days to see it, but you eventually will see it. And and all teams do the same thing over and over. They don't really change a lot, especially later in the season. You'll see the same thing over and over and over.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens, though, with Tua. I mean, would it change the scenery? And I think Joe Rose said it best. And I love the big dog. Shout out to Joe Rose. I've always had a ton of respect for that dude. when I was younger working in Miami, he was always cool and helping younger guys or whatever. Joe's a great dude, and he knows the Dolphins, obviously, and he knows how to connect with people on the Dolphins, and he's been real tough on the Dolphins with Tua. He's been all over the whole Tua thing, and, you know, he said it best, Z. He said, okay, you're going to go to a place where it's warm. You're going to go to a dome. You're going to do whatever, right? Wherever you go, oh, breath of fresh air, new scenario. Hey, I'm back. It doesn't work that way, is Joe's point. And I'm paraphrasing here. He's like, you're still not going to have a strong enough arm to make a third of the throws on the field. You're still not going to be able to throw in the cold or a wet ball. You're still going to be injury prone and be brittle and on the decline physically. Those things will not get better by changing scenery, Z. They just won't.
No, but I think a change of scenery would be good for the kid. I think a backup role for a year is going to be great for the kid. You know, just get the liking it back, getting his confidence back, you know, and just playing loose. It goes a long way for some of these cats, you know. Look at Sam Donald. He bounced around a little bit. It was a backup until he got his groove back. And now look at him, you know, Super Bowl champion. And I'm not saying that could happen with Tua. It could, but you never know. But again, when a guy gets to be getting that backup role and kind of see, you know, how it goes, and you not be the man every weekend and week out, not in front of the camera every Sunday after a win or a loss and in middle of the week, you know, getting questioned about this, that, and the other, and just enjoying football, it might be do good things for the kid.
If I'm the Niners, I up the price on Mac Jones. I bring Tua in for a year. That's what I do if I'm saying he's a perfect Shanahan guy. Perfect, right? If Brock Purdy, and I've known Brock Purdy since he was a kid. My old radio partner and a guy I did games with for 12 years on the radio was his quarterback coach from the time he was 6 or 7 years old. And I love Brock Purdy. Who doesn't love Brock Purdy? But I mean, Tua, Brock Purdy, in that system, I think Tua would be real good. And I think if I'm the Niners, I would rather have Tua than Kyler Murray or anybody like that. But then I wonder where the dominoes are going to fall, Z, because Cousins now needs a job. And Cousins, like when you notice when he was right and he was starting when he was healthy this past year, you saw a difference, right? You saw a big difference in that team when he was playing well, and he could still get it done. So you have a guy like Cousins out there, and then you're talking about Tua, and then you're talking about Kyler Murray. I don't know if Kyler Murray is going to go somewhere and be a backup. I don't know if that's going to happen. But you have the Chiefs out there with Mahomes, who swears he's going to be ready for week 1. Does a guy like Tua or Kyler Murray end up in KC underneath Andy Reid for a year? And they got their whole offensive staff back together with Bieniemy. And, you know, that's going to be interesting to see what they do with Mahomes, and they need a good backup. And the Eagles, there's no guarantee that Jalen Hurts is even going to be the guy long-term with that team. So do you bring another guy who's been a quality starter into the league in the league to push him? I guess my point is, Z, when you're a guy who can get it done at that position and you've done it in the past, you're always going to get a chance because there's so few of them who can. Just looking at like what Stidham did for the Broncos, right? It's so rare to have an elite backup. And if Tua does become a backup somewhere, he's a pretty elite backup.
Well, again, I mean, I'm sure Kyle would probably know this number. I mean, how many quarterbacks went off 17 games, you know, playing? Not many. You know what I'm saying? Because they all go down at some point, it seems like, you know, and sometimes 2 go down on your team. You got to have 1 or 2 on your team that, you know, are capable of going the long haul, because some of these injuries are getting pretty bad for these quarterbacks. So, again, and then another guy that no one's really talking about is I can't think of his name right now, the Texan guy, the backup. He won 4 or 5 games in a row when CJ was out, right?
Yeah,
so,
the Houston Texans, and that's the Slowick connection, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's who knows, maybe you can swing a deal, with D'Amico down there to, get him over here because he knows Bobby's system and everything.
Yeah, Davis Mills. But the problem is, and you're in Houston, how much faith do you have in CJ Stroud, man? That's, I don't know. They had everything but, and that's a team where if I'm in that locker room, I'm going to the coaches, the GMs like, yo, we need this now, because defenses like that don't come along very often in the NFL, Z. And when they do, they can't be having a quarterback cost them a championship run like Fields did. I mean, like Fields, might as well, like Stroud. Yeah, they're interchangeable, those two, in my mind. They're the Jets. What a disaster.
No. They're 2 different cats, dude. Don't put them both in this. They're both from Ohio State. You can say that.
They're both Buckeyes, and they're both way overrated. Way.
Yeah, well, I mean, CJ had a good,
I hate Ohio State, for the record. I mean, you don't see this right here, do you? I hate the Buckeyes.
Oh, let it go.
Well, we beat them this year. We smoked them, Z.
Yeah, you did.
Ruben Bain was a big part of that, dominating that supposedly unbeatable offensive line of Ohio State, and we dominated them up front.
But you still lost to a Big Ten school in the championship.
We did. We lost it. What school was that, Z? Your favorite?
Indiana, Big Ten, 3 years in a row, Natties.
Yeah,
this is
you're
the
right.
Conference of the Natty, baby.
It's just nice to see the SEC fall. I'm not going to lie. I'm a hater. All this talk about there's the SEC and there's everybody else. It should be the SEC first. It should be this. It should be that. And 3 in a row from the Big Ten, where they play real football and those West Coast teams go in there. Yeah, and by the way, USC and Oregon, they're not one of them. You know what I mean? So
and Washington.
Those smash mouth teams, right? In Washington and Signetti, what he's done at Indiana, I have to think, Z, that's one of the greatest jobs I've ever seen in college football.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And not have a whole bunch of like portal people either, like some of these schools, they just big rebound. Oh, half these cats weren't even here last year, He did it the right way. He got some, guys in there, got guys that come back too, and not leave early. That's an older team that, won that Natty.
Man, it really is. And it's funny when we talk about players and what they did on the field and Bain dominating that offensive line. And now, oh, nope, his arms are too short. Too bad for him.
Let it go, Gries. Holy cow.
Well, no, I'm just saying, I think it's funny that you could lose millions of dollars because your arms are like 2 inches shorter than somebody else's. See, the absurdity of that is not lost on me, but I know it's not absurd because I know it actually does make a big difference. You've already explained that here on the show.
Don't we have to go to break, Gries?
We do, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Get you off this topic.
There we go. All right, I'm off the topic, just like that. Can't see me. No, it's interesting, man. I'm curious to see where the Canes go. I remember the year with the 6 first rounders. We were doing a draft show, me and Jeff DeForest, and I was out at Dolphins headquarters interviewing Saban and Wayne Huizenga and all those guys. You were on the teams then, Z. Mm-hmm. And we had Defo at headquarters. We had, I think, Josh Friedman down at the University of Miami with some of those guys. And that was an epic draft show because when the Dolphins have an important pick and there's a lot of good things going on with the Dolphins, and then you have Canes who are first-round picks as well in the same draft, that makes for a great South Florida draft show, right? And now that the Canes are good again, we have that conversation with multiple first-rounders getting ready to be picked by the University of Miami or out of the University of Miami. It's certainly not a bad thing, Z. But I am interested to see what happens in this next week or so. We'll come back next week with some more shows. Kyle will be back with us. He's been super busy at the Combine, been killing it for us and for the channel. So make sure you check out all his work right here where you're watching us or listening to us. Kyle Krabs, we're just spoiled to have him out there at the Combine. So offensive players this weekend, Z, and I look at the Dolphins at 11 and what you've seen so far, and we still have the offensive players, but what you've seen so far from what I've heard you say on this show, if he's there, you're going Styles, period, point blank.
Yeah, him or one of the DNs. That's if Again, I got to do some research on these cornerbacks. Some of these cornerbacks are starting to pop off the board. That I've been reading. So I got to kind of look into that. I can't wait to hear Kyle's take on some of these corners that were there, because I have no idea what's going on over there. Because we need a corner, we need a D end, and again, but Styles, that's a cat that you have to take a long look at linebacker. I think if he's sitting there at 11, you might have to pull the trigger on that one because you may not get a chance to get a cat like that for a long time.
Yeah, and he's not just a workout wonder. I mean, he's a devastating force on the field. He's tall, he weighs a lot. He's heavy in the ass. He's fast. He's got it all.
And I know for a middle backer type off the ball linebacker at 11's a little rich, so they say. So, but again, you could do a lot with that. He kind of reminds me of his range and everything. It's kind of like the Tremaine Edwards that came out of Virginia Tech or Virginia that went to the Bills, I think, in the first round. And now he's with the Bears. He could move like that kind of, he was all over the place, made plays everywhere, and to me, it's kind of the same, maybe, again, I haven't really studied Styles that great, but I'm just thinking about other guys with that kind of build and that kind of, ability.
Yeah, and you think about the type of coach that Hafley is. He's a teacher, and he loves those linebackers and DBs flying all over the field. So it's going to be fun to see what they do there. Z, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap it up, man? What are you looking for over the weekend, and what are you thinking about next week in the aftermath of the Combine, moving into releases, free agency, and the draft?
I just want to get the free agency started going because that's always the fun time. As a coach, it was always and as a player, because now you're like for me, I'm like, well, let's get the first 3 weeks over free agency so I can start talking. because I was always like a third tier type guy, So you get your first tiers, your first weekend, you're supposed of not, whatever, pre free agency talks, and it gets done, and the guys are flying at midnight to their new teams, to sign their contracts and whatever, and so it's good to get those top guys off, and then you start getting to your meats and potatoes, and you start getting more quality players, and then once you get your third and fourth wave of guys, that's where you make your team. That's your special teams guys who are going to give you quality reps and some some special teams play, and that's where you build your core of your team. It's no different than the draft. Same thing. The third, fourth, fifth rounders that your core group that you hope you can keep 4 or 5 years, and win a championship.
And Z, I want to just my final thought. I say you're going to laugh at me, but I see Bain everywhere from 2 to almost out of the first round. So there's a lot of just it's crazy when you look at these mock drafts and you never know really what's going to happen. Caleb Downs might not be there, the safety from Ohio State. They're very likely could end up with an Ohio State defensive player. I don't think Bailey will be there from Texas Tech. I don't know if they'd take Carnell Tate or Jeremiah Love if they're there anyway, and I don't think they will be. So it's either going to be a corner, a safety, or a linebacker, we would think, at number 11. And if a guy like Maui Noah slides down there, it's hard not to pick him, but you got Patrick Paul. So do you take another elite tackle when you have so many other needs? And these are questions for John Eric Sullivan to ponder. And, of course, the brain trust with the Miami Dolphins, and then see what Jeff Hafley can do with all of it when camp starts and we head toward the season. But Kyle will be back next week. We're going to be a little off with the schedule for the next 2 or 3, weeks, maybe a little bit longer than that. So make sure you keep looking for us, and we'll be here twice a week. And obviously you don't have to catch us live, but if you do on YouTube, shout out to you for being here right now. And if you're listening to us after you downloaded, that's our biggest audience. We love you as well, from the everydayers all the way down to the newbies. And then, Z, we're on Roku, man. And we're also, what that means is we're on Roku, but we're also in the Tegna system. Tegna's our ownership group, and they own a ton of TV stations. So I look through and I see that a lot of those affiliates from around the country are running our show on their websites and on their TV channels as well. So shout out to all of you for doing that. And shout out to Jeff Zgonina for being great here on the show, and to Kyle Krabs for being number 1 in the business. We'll be back next week with 2 episodes of your Dolphins Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Until then, keep your game tight and your mind right, and let your arms go longer so it doesn't cost you millions.